All rise, Henry County Superior Court is now in session. John O'Brien, J. Perry, presiding.
Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. All right, we have any housekeeping before we get started?
He's not changing the evidence. That's his full past kind of use. It was introduced, but not changing the evidence. It's a picture of the birthday party at Noah's Ark.
Any objection? It's admitted. Okay, and let's see, the two can come to an agreement as to where the video should go.
Yeah, Judge, I have a cue to begin again as the detectives walk back in. And then as soon as Ms. Rosenbaum's attorney at the time says, okay, so we want to let me step outside and you too, that's when they leave again, and that would be what we would turn off.
Perfect, thank you. All right, let's go ahead then and have the jury step out. Morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're ready to proceed. So, if the statement, please.
They go ahead and dress for their activities in the day, or they just stay in their night clothes or whatever they're doing.
I just have to look at it on my just regular clothes.
And you were prepared to leave to go for the command or something. What time did you leave and about to go there? And you have to go there. And you knew you would be back around what time? And you were able to do that? You got back and you woke up to Joseph, right? All right, anyway, I was shortly at that point. She said they had taken that. And so Joseph leaves between, and meanwhile you're preparing something to eat for both girls and get ready to leave. What time do you try to leave for the DOC?
5:45. You have to be there like a certain amount of time earlier when we make comments. So, like, from my house to the DOC is probably 30, 40 minutes if there's no traffic, and then like be there and not have time to make a comment. I just want to leave about 45 minutes.
You're going to his home, the bathroom routine, the preparing food, they both eat. He finishes earlier than Layla, and then you notice the distress of Layla, and you go through the whole rendering egg and all that, and then you all that, right? And prior to that, in the period of time you saw them from getting home, they seemed normal. As you woke them up, they were fine. They went to the bathroom, they ate fine. Well, what we've gotten at this point on the medical and everything, they're saying that Layla died from non-accidental trauma and those inflicted injuries. Okay? And from your account, the only people who she fell around was yourself and Joseph. Tell me how these injuries. You can't tell me about anyone who may have caused an injury to the child that could result in her death.
So can we take a break for a second, or can you, future?
Detective Thompson, that interview was conducted 6 days after the incident, correct?
Yes.
After you conducted that interview, did you go and did you interview any other witnesses in this particular case?
Yes, I did speak to the former caretaker for Layla and Millie.
Okay, and who was that?
That was Mrs. Lambert.
Is Mrs. Lambert the only person in that room that you spoke with?
Later on, I did speak to her daughter and also Millie later on as well.
Now, and did you memorialize those interviews in some way?
Of course, the report, and I believe there was an audio recording, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you also interview a person by the name of Ms. Hall?
Yes, I did.
And was that part of your investigation as well?
Yes, it was.
Now, did you ever make any requests of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta specifically for their advice line?
I did. I tried to get, there was, an allegation that when Layla had fallen within the Rosenbaum's household, she had fallen on her face and smashed her nose. And Mrs. Hall advised that she had, she along with Mrs. Rosenbaum were on the advice line for CHOA and to try to get, some ideas as far as how to remedy, her condition.
And what did you do to attempt to obtain anything from Children's Healthcare?
Whatever, I'm not sure if it was a court order or subpoena that they required. I submitted that for the record, but I never got anything back.
How many times did you attempt?
If I had to remember, probably about 3 or 4 times.
So you never were able to get anything from them?
No.
At any point, so yesterday we talked about you attended the autopsy, correct?
That's correct.
At any point after the autopsy, did you have any further conversations with the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
And based upon those conversations, did you take any sort of legal documents out with regard to Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And what did you take out?
Charging documents. I charged, the initial charge was for malice murder and cruelty to children.
And was that for both of them, or did you charge different charges for them?
Initially, it was for Jennifer Rosenbaum, the charge of malice murder and cruelty to children in the first. And then I charged Joseph with cruelty to children in the first. But that was later changed after another contact with the ME.
Now, the final charging decision, as far as what formal charges get brought, is that up to you or is that up to the district attorney's office?
I initiate what I believe is going to be the charge, but the district attorney's office also may chime in and say, no, we need to upgrade because of this or that.
So and is it quite common for the DA's office to change charges that maybe you take warrants out?
Yes.
Did you also speak with some other witnesses by the name of Peggy Banks and Kim Smith?
I did.
Okay. And did you make note of that in your report?
I did.
Now, at any point, did Millie Place ever have a second interview?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that interview, how that came to be.
We had gotten information, I believe it came from Mrs. Lambert, that Millie was now kind of making disclosures of abuses in the home.
Number one, Ms. Lambert does that. Number two, this just kind of gets us, we're not offering the truth, we're offering it as to why he initiated that second interview.
Well, that's officer conduct. It's important such. Sustain the narrow Sustained objection.
At some point, though, did you ultimately set up a second interview with Millie?
Yes.
And tell me, where was that interview held?
It was at the Lambert's residence.
Now, you said the first interview was held at the Southern Crescent Sexual Assault Center. Correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us why the second interview was held at Ms. Lambert's home?
So typically, yes, the standard is to take the child to a CAC or Child Advocacy Center. But in this instance, basically out of compassion for Millie, because, she had lost her sister, had been displaced several times throughout her life, at this time. And I just wanted to make sure that, she was somewhere comfortable, because she had already been to a CAC, a Child Advocacy Center, right after Layla's death. So I didn't feel the need to do that.
Now, since she was not taken to a Child Advocacy Center, did you bring anyone else with you?
Yes, Detective Mellon, I brought him along. He's trained in forensic interview, so I had him come in tow with me so that basically as a mentor to make sure that, we weren't asking the child anything that was leading or suggestive and all that kind of thing.
So Detective Mellon was present during this interview?
He was.
And you mentioned that he was trained in forensic interviewing?
Yes.
And do you recall what Millie disclosed during the second interview?
She did disclose how, whenever Jennifer gets mad at them, sometimes she snatches them or grabs them up by their arms, holds them up by their arms, things of that nature. And she made mention of, I want to say it was Layla being kicked at one time, but she never, I think that was it.
Okay. And would it be safe to say that whatever is contained on did you all videotape this?
I'm trying to remember. I know that it was at least audio recorded. I want to say we used the Surface Pro and tried to videotape it as well.
And whatever is contained on the video would be an accurate representation of what Millie disclosed that day, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Did you also come into contact with a person by the name of Sarah McKee?
Yes.
And who is Miss McKee?
She, I believe one of her children goes to the gym tech, and that's how she had knowledge of the Rosenbaum.
And how did Miss McKee first come to your attention?
I believe she just reached out to me and called me.
And did you interview Miss McKee?
I did.
And at some point, I'm going to show you what the previously admitted as State 213. Is this something from your interview with Ms. McKee?
Yeah, it's just a photocopy of my my notepad where she had told me she had observed an injury on Layla and kind of drew a makeshift figure there of a torso, and she just basically pointed to me where the injury was.
Prior to Ms. McKee doing this, did you show her any photographs that were associated with this case?
Oh, no, no.
Now, at a certain point, did you all obtain a search warrant for vehicle swabs to test the DNA on the butter knife that was obtained at the scene?
Yes.
And those vehicle swabs were submitted to the GBI for further analysis?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Did you know Jennifer Rosenbaum prior to investigating this particular case?
No.
Did you know Joseph Rosenbaum prior to investigating this case?
No.
Did anyone from any of the following agencies pressure you in any way regarding this investigation? The Henry County Police Department?
No.
The Henry County Board of Commissioners?
No.
The Henry County District Attorney's Office?
No.
The DeKalb County District Attorney's Office?
No.
The Cobb County District Attorney's Office?
No.
Department of Family and Children's Services?
No.
Any other government agency?
No.
Did they pressure you in any way to bring charges against either Mr. or Mrs. Rosenbaum for any sort of political vendetta?
No.
Further time.
morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Just wanted to touch base on a couple of things that you mentioned. What was the background of Detective Mullins? What schooling did he have?
I can't testify to that.
Did he have forensic child interviewing background or forensic interviewing
I
background?
believe it was child, but you'd have to ask him.
So you don't know. As you sit here today, you don't know what his background is.
I don't know. I know that he said he was trained in forensic interviews. I just trust his opinion, his word.
And let's talk a little bit about the warrants that Mr. Chase was mentioning. Isn't it true you took out a warrant for Jennifer for failing to feed Layla, for starving Layla, correct?
I'd have to see the actual charging document.
You don't have the actual charging document with you?
I don't.
So you do not recall charging her with cruelty in the first for failure to feed?
That verbiage I don't remember, but I knew it was mostly related to the bruising and, you know, the other broken bones and things of that nature that were sustained.
You later found out, did you not, that she was well nourished? Isn't that true? Layla was well nourished.
I later found out from the ME that, you know, she couldn't really substantiate that, you know, the child was malnourished.
In other words, she was well nourished. Yes? Is that a yes?
Yes.
But story about malnourishment had gotten out into the press and into the public sphere, isn't that true?
No, I got that information from talking to other witnesses, you know, just based on information that I received.
You're not listening to my question.
Okay.
That story of malnutrition had gotten out into the public after you took out those warrants.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Now, you talked to Miss Lambert, and she told you in June of 28 of 2015 that Jennifer had picked up the girls. And the girls had come back with bruises.
Okay.
Do you recall getting the records for this visit?
No, Mrs. Lambert basically documented everything herself. She kept a notepad where she documented all that stuff
But you
herself.
never got the records to see whether she took the child to the doctor or not, did you?
We already subpoenaed records, medical records and everything, so that wasn't in any kind of medical records, like the little mark on her eye and stuff like that. I doubt that she would even go to the doctor for something like that.
Isn't it true, though, Detective, that Miss Lambert told you she took the children to the doctor because of the bruises?
I recall Mrs. Lambert saying she would report that to her defects caseworker.
So as far as you don't know anything about a medical visit?
That I can recall other than the broken leg.
Did a doctor report to you that he had seen any bruises or cuts on the child?
No doctor reported to me.
Now, you asked Jennifer about the broken arm, and you told her, and she told you that she was not aware of it. Isn't that true?
I believe that's, you talking about in our interview? Yes.
She told you that Layla did not demonstrate any pain or indication that she broke her arm, correct?
I believe that's true.
And in fact, she told you Layla had attempted to climb onto the mail truck.
I remember that.
And you talked to Miss Hall.
Yes.
She told you she was alarmed when Layla was brought to her residence. Did she call the police and report it?
Not the police, no.
No. Did she call a advice line?
Yes,
And an advice line is not DFACS, is it?
no, ma'am.
An advice line is not the police, is it?
No.
Now, Mrs. Hall told you 5 days later she saw more injuries. She still never called police or DFACS, did she?
She never made that known to me.
She never made that known to you.
No.
Now, the day after Layla died, you went to the Crescent Center, Southern Crescent Center, to watch Millie's interview.
That's correct.
And why didn't you do this interview?
I'm not a forensic interviewer, so I mean, generally speaking, first of all, it was set up by DFACS. It wasn't set up by myself. So I was just asked to attend.
But the reason you don't do it is because you're not trained in forensic child interviewing.
That's correct.
And the reason you didn't do it is because it's important for a child, when a child's statement is sought, that it be gotten through the advocacy center, correct?
It's suggested.
And it's also suggested that nobody talk to the child about the events and let the forensic interviewer bring those out, correct?
Typically, yes.
And Millie, in her interview, said that she was upstairs watching TV. Isn't that correct?
Which interview are we speaking about?
The Southern Crescent Advocacy Center that you witnessed.
Let me give me a second to refresh my memory. For whatever reason, I can't find it here where I said anything about her.
Of your memory, do you know where she was at the time that Layla was allegedly downstairs with Miss Rosenbaum?
Based on our second interview, she said something about her being upstairs, I believe.
So you do recall that she said she was upstairs?
I do.
And when she did the interview at Southern Center, she told you she hurt her arm in gymnastics, didn't she?
Millie said that, she said that that's how she hurt her. Got the
And
bruise on herself.
she was detailed about it, wasn't she?
I'm not sure I would call that detail. She just said she did it during gymnastics. That was it.
Isn't it true she said that she was reaching for a high bar when she slipped and struck her knee against her elbow?
Yes, sir.
She also said that Layla hurt her leg at gymnastics, didn't she?
Yes.
And Layla wasn't hurt anywhere else, Millie said, right?
From what I can remember, that's all I remember her saying about it was just gymnastics. That was it.
And she said that Layla uses the low bars, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you yourself concluded in your report that it was possible Layla was simply engaged in play but not enrolled in the gym, correct?
Yes.
And Millie said that Layla is usually picked up by her waist by the coaches.
Yes.
And Millie said Layla did not break any other bones.
She wouldn't know that, but yes.
But that's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asked if anyone asked her to say anything, and she said no, didn't she?
Yes.
She never said anyone hurt her, kicked her, kneed her, or spanked her, did she?
No.
You and Detective Mellon talked to Millie again about 10 days later after her forensic interview, correct?
I believe it's about the time frame.
And to be accurate accurate, this would have been, your interview with her and Detective Mellon would have been her third forensic interview, correct?
It wasn't a formal interview.
But it was done by a forensic interviewer, wasn't it?
Me and him both were asking questions of the family and of Melanie.
So this would have been the third time a forensic interviewer asked her questions.
A person trained in forensic interview, yes, he asked her questions.
So that's a yes.
He asked her questions.
And it was the third time that she was asked questions by a forensic interviewer.
For this investigation,
We have the first investigation, forensic investigation, because the allegations of somebody touching her,
oh yeah, unrelated, but yeah, but
unrelated entirely to this case.
that's good.
Then there was the second interview, which was right after she had come back from the hospital, correct?
That's correct.
After her sister died. And then the third one was with you and Detective Mellon. And it was not structured like a forensic interview, was it?
No, it was very informal.
It was informal. You were asking questions, he was asking questions, Miss Lambert walked in, Kia was sitting there with her, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you and Detective Mellon talked to Millie after she had been with her mother and her great-grandmother, correct?
I'm not sure who she had been with in between that time period.
But in between the time for the funeral, she was with her mother and great-grandmother.
I don't know.
You don't know, okay. At any event, you asked about Jennifer Rosenbaum, didn't you?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, so you did not ask her what Miss Jennifer did?
Only after she, basically made mention of Jennifer.
So you did ask her about Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yeah, after she initiated.
And you also asked about Joseph Rosenbaum, didn't you?
Yes.
And you were told by Millie that he treated Millie and Layla good, weren't you?
Yes.
And you had Kaya sitting there beside Millie to give her moral support, correct?
No, Kaya's just there. She just happened to be there.
Just happened to be there.
Yes. I didn't ask her to come sit here for more support.
But you didn't ask her to come sit for moral support.
No.
And let's talk a little bit about Peggy Banks. You spoke to her initially, and she said there was no suspicions of abuse, correct? Her first statement she ever made.
I do recall that when I first spoke to Mrs. Banks, she said she thought that the Rosenbaums were a good fit for the children at that time period, yes.
So the second time you talked to her, she contacted you, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And she contacted you then several times after that, correct?
Yes.
With emails, with notes, with personal calls, correct?
Yes.
And she contacted you with supposed accusations against Miss Rosenbaum, didn't she?
Yes.
And she contacted you about a month, the first time she contacted you was a month after the written statement that she gave.
I don't recall how long the time span was.
But in her statement to you, you tell people to write what they know, correct? When they give a statement.
They want the truth.
You want the truth at all times.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want the whole truth.
Yes.
Ms. Banks could have said anything she wanted to in that statement, correct, that she wrote, the first initial statement she wrote.
Yes.
But a month later, she had more information for you, didn't she?
I don't know the time frame, but yes, there was a time period where she was filtering information in, yes.
And what, on December 7, 15, she and Miss Kim Smith sought you out, correct? You interviewed Kim Smith.
Yes.
And Miss Smith had also given a statement where she said she had never seen evidence of abuse.
No evidence of abuse, but just that she did recall a mark on the child, yes.
But I'm talking about her first statement to you. Did she not say they were good parents?
She believes so, yes.
She didn't say anything about marks on her first statement, did she?
Not on her first statement.
In her first statement, she said they were doing very well with the Rosenbaums, right?
What
And she was happy with them being there.
Yeah, what she said was she thought that they were the Rosenbaums were again a good fit for the children.
She too came down to talk to you again after her written statement to basically contradict herself, correct?
I don't recall much of a contradiction.
Well, she didn't. She started talking about marks and bruises, didn't she?
A mark.
Okay. But she hadn't talked about that before, had she?
I don't recall how many times I spoke to Mrs. Smith. I spoke to Mrs. Banks more than I did Mrs. Smith.
But Miss Smith gave a written statement to begin with and never mentioned any marks or bruises, correct?
I'd have to see the document.
Let's move on to Miss Lambert. Miss Lambert talked to you a lot initially, correct?
I believe maybe 2 or 3 times, I'm not sure.
And she talked to you some when you came out to interview Millie, correct?
She did.
Now, she never told you that Millie said that Joseph had beat up Millie on her back, did she?
No.
She never told you that.
No.
She never told you that Millie said that Jennifer was drinking and slinging the children up and down the stairs, did she?
No.
She never mentioned those 2 things to you, did she?
No.
Now, you wrote very detailed reports, isn't it correct? Your reports in this case were voluminous, correct?
Detail.
Detailed. And that's your hallmark, is it not? That's what you're known for.
Yes.
Okay. And nowhere in these statements does it say anything about Joseph beating Millie on the back, does it?
No.
Or Jennifer slinging children around up and down the stairs when she's drunk.
No.
In those reports, you documented what you saw, what you heard, and what people told you, correct?
Yes.
And Miss Banks ever tell you that Millie had said Jennifer made her eat her own vomit? Anywhere in your statements, in your reports, do you have that?
I don't recall me writing that.
You don't recall her saying that, do you?
Not that I can recall.
And you're a very detailed person.
I try to be.
Now, Miss Lambert never told you that Jennifer said, if they think the children are coming home without bruises, they've got another thing coming. She never told you that, did she?
I don't remember her making that statement to me.
It's not in your reports. When you spoke to Millie, Millie said she was upstairs when Layla was downstairs with Miss Rosenbaum, right?
I believe that's what she said. She was upstairs, yes.
And she confirmed that Joseph Rosenbaum was out of the house at the time that she and Layla were with Miss Rosenbaum.
Yes.
At no time did Miss Banks or Miss Lambert talk to you about mashed potatoes, did they?
I don't remember anything about mashed potatoes.
And everything that Millie said is important, isn't it?
Yes?
And so you would write down anything that Millie said, that people told you Millie said X, Y, Z, you would write that down.
That's correct.
And you don't have anything about slapping on, beating on the back on your notes, do you?
No.
You have nothing about eating mashed potato vomit?
No.
You have nothing about Jennifer bruising, saying that, you know, her children would come back with bruises?
That Jennifer, I'm sorry, say that again now.
You don't have anything in your notes that says that Miss Lambert told you Millie said Jennifer, I'm sorry, let me start that over. Let me start that. You never received any information from Miss Lambert that Jennifer told her if they think the children are coming back without bruises, they've got another thing coming.
No, I never received that
You
information.
never received that information.
No.
And you're the lead detective in this case.
I am.
Thank you. Kevin Thompson.
Detective, it's safe to say that if something, that things that Ms. Mull went over with you wasn't said to you, you didn't put it in your report, correct?
Correct.
All right. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, he's leading to this.
Does it mean that it's not true?
No, no, it does not mean it's not true.
Now, let's talk a little bit. First of all, is this your complete report?
These look like the notes that I made.
Is that your report?
Yes.
Okay. This pile look a little smaller than the one when this Mull was just waving around?
That's correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the starvation aspect. You did speak to Dr. Darisaw about that, correct?
I did.
And based upon that, did you have any further concerns about this being a medical starvation type case?
No, not a medical starvation.
Were there any concerns that were brought to your attention from family?
Yes.
And did that play into some of the reason why you were investigating that?
That's the only reason I would explore that, is because I got the information from someone else. Yes.
Okay. And as a detective, is it important that you investigate?
Yes.
Investigate that?
Yes.
And ultimately, did you find out that starvation was not something the medical examiner was concerned about?
Yes.
Warrants, when warrants are taken out, those are public, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Mull mentioned about being brought to a children's advocacy center for the forensic interview. Who interviews children at the children's advocacy center?
Generally a forensic interviewer.
Someone who's trained in forensic interviewing?
That's correct.
And that's the same training that Detective Mellon has, correct?
That's my understanding.
Now, Ms. Mull asked you about the first forensic interview and the gymnastics that Millie said that Layla hurt her leg in gymnastics, correct?
Yes.
At any other point during your investigation, did Millie explain where she got that information from?
She said that Jennifer Rosenbaum directly told her to say that that's where she got the entry from.
And that's something that you heard Millie say yourself?
Yes.
And when was that?
That was when I was at the Lamberts.
She also talked about the various forensic interviews. Millie was only interviewed twice for this case, though, correct?
For this case, yes.
Now, there's also conversation about Ms. Banks and Ms. Smith. Is it safe to say that in the beginning,
Objection to leaving
This is foundation.
is it safe to say that in the beginning they had a different opinion than they did later on?
Yes,
And in the beginning, what were their general feelings about Ms. Rosenbaum?
they were excited that they seemed like the couple had had everything together. It was a structured family, and they thought they were a good fit for the children.
As they started to receive more facts, did it appear that changed?
It did change.
And at that point, were they providing you additional information?
Yes.
Now, specifically, Ms. Smith, did she indicate when the last time that she saw Layla alive was?
I believe they were at an event at Noah's Ark.
Did she indicate when that was, if you recall?
For whatever reason, I thought it was a birthday occasion.
Okay. Did she discuss anything at that Noah's Ark? The last time she saw her at Noah's Ark, did she discuss anything at Noah's Ark that was concerning to her?
I want to say she was telling me how she thought that Millie was.
I would object to hearsay.
Response?
I would say they opened the door.
No objection was lodged.
Pardon?
No objection was lodged to my questions. I'm lodging an objection to this leading question.
Just because an objection wasn't lodged doesn't mean they didn't open the door.
Open the door to what?
As to
everything or to just different topics?
Just Ms. Smith.
You allow it.
Do you recall what if Ms. Smith found anything concerning at that Noah's Ark?
She just explained that. I remember her saying that she thought that Millie was rather robotic, and for lack of a better term, meaning that she didn't seem like herself. She just did not. She didn't do anything without approval from Mrs. Rosenbaum, and made mention that she couldn't mess up her dress, and that. She did tell me something about Layla as well.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if maybe we look at your report?
Sure.
Did you have a chance to review your report?
I did.
And did she have any other concerns?
Yeah, she noted that she said she wasn't really that close to Layla, and that she remembers Layla kind of like flinging herself at her, like just wanting to be held by her, and that Mrs. Smith also had a male companion there with her that Layla didn't know, and that I think she gave Layla back to Joseph, and then Layla again tried to reach out to this gentleman, which she thought was odd.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
She thought it was odd that.
Can I have 1 moment? Madam President.
Thank you. And recross.
Where in your notes do you have it that Ms. Smith said that she gave the child back to Mr. Rosenbaum?
Mrs. Smith said she gave Layla to Joseph Rosenbaum to hold, but noted that Layla, who did not know Mrs. Smith's companion, Jim, Flung herself at him.
Flung herself at him. Now, that's what Ms. Kim Smith said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about what you're talking about, the feeding with Mr. Chase. Isn't it true that the warrant that you took out said that by failing to feed the child in quantities necessary to sustain an adequate body weight, that's what you took the warrant out for, isn't it?
Again, I'd have to see the
Would it help refresh your
doctor.
recollection?
Sure. This is the information that, based on the investigation at that point, that's the information I put into the warrant. Yes, ma'am.
Now, with regards to Ms. Lambert and Ms. Banks, if they didn't tell you something, it doesn't mean it's not true, but it doesn't mean it's true either, does it?
Not necessarily right.
So it doesn't mean anything. The fact that they told you, they didn't tell you anything, doesn't mean it's true or it's false. It just means they didn't tell it to you, correct?
I have to take everyone at face value, so and then further investigate to determine whether or not I can, find the truth in that.
Isn't it true that by not telling you, it just means she didn't tell you?
It could be, yes.
Now, let's talk about June 29th. Isn't it true that on June 28th, let's back up, June 27th, Miss Lambert told you that the children were picked up by Jennifer Rosenbaum for visits. And upon return of the visit on June 28th, Miss Lambert noticed dark purple bruises under her left eye and a reddish bruise on her right arm. Would it help if I showed you a copy of your statement, sir?
Sure. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay.
Isn't that in fact what Ms. Lambert told you?
Yes.
And she told you that she took the child to the doctor, to the pediatrician, regarding the injuries received on her visit with the Rosenbaums.
Yes.
And isn't it true that there are no medical records to substantiate that? Isn't that true?
I don't recall sending any medical records.
So you don't, as you sit here, you don't know of any medical records that substantiate that Ms. Lambert took the child to the doctor for bruises?
Not that I can recall.
And there's no picture accounting for that bruise and cut, is there?
Not that I can recall.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. And you can step down.
Thank you.
Objection, this witness can be excused.
Nothing stated.
And you're excused.
Well, some things have been opened up, Ms. Smith may have to testify later, so I might need to be available.
Well, and you're still subject to returning.
Sure.
Just stay in a place where we can reach you.
Yes, thank you.
The state will call us next witness.
State calls Crytal Bales.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please lower your hand, you can have a seat. Please state and spell your first and last name.
My name is Crytal Bales, Crystal. Last name is Bales.
And Ms. Bales, how are you employed?
I'm currently employed as a nurse practitioner in a family practice.
And can you tell me a little bit about your background and training to be a nurse practitioner?
So I went to school to become a nurse. I got my associate's degree, and then I later got my bachelor's degree. and I worked as a nurse for several years before I became a nurse practitioner, and I've been a nurse practitioner for a little over 2 years now.
In 2015, how were you employed?
I was employed at Piedmont Henry in the emergency department as a registered nurse.
And as a registered nurse with Piedmont Henry, what were some of your duties?
I would triage patients whenever they would present to the emergency department, meaning I took the reason why they had arrived, I did vital signs, I communicated with the doctors and nurse practitioners and PA physician's assistants that were there treating patients, and carried out any of the orders that they gave, such as giving medications, starting IVs, assessing patients, doing a physical exam on them.
And on November the 17th of 2015, did you have occasion to see a patient by the name of Millie Place?
I did.
And how did you end up having to see Millie Place?
I was assigned to the minor emergency area as the registered nurse there, and she was brought in, and I was assigned to take care of her.
Do you recall who she was brought in by?
A DFAX worker, I believe.
And did you, let me ask you, is it necessary to get some history before you start your examination?
Yes, it is.
And did you get any history in regards to Millie?
I was just told that she was being brought in and needed an assessment.
Object to this coming from third parties. You can tell the history that Millie gave, but not from third parties.
That's from a defects worker.
Yes, Judge.
Sustained objection.
Did you, at what point, did you at some point do an examination of Millie?
I did.
And where did that, I guess, examination occur?
In one of our exam rooms in the minor emergency area.
And who was present during that examination?
There was the DFAX worker, and there was also a photographer from the police department that was present.
Was,
You can approach this briefly.
thinking about who was present in the room, was there anyone else besides yourself, DFAX worker, Millie, and I believe you said someone taking photographs?
I believe that was all that was there that day that I can recall.
And tell me about your examination of Millie.
Whenever a patient presents, we have to do like a full head-to-toe examination. So she was unclothed at the time, so I did a full body examination and documented in my notes that day what I had found. We also listened to heart and lung sounds and make sure that she's alert and oriented, knows where she's at.
Were there any specific complaints of pain that you were made aware of as far as your treatment for Millie?
There was, I believe it was a left elbow pain. It's documented in the notes as well.
And you, during your observation and examination of Millie, did you make any observation in regards to any markings, bruises, or injuries of significance to you?
Yes, I did.
And what injuries did you, I guess, see during your examination?
I would have to view my notes because I don't recall.
And entering what's already been marked to enter into State's Exhibit, which is State's Exhibit 76.
So on my notes, I had written that there were bruises in various stages of healing noted to the left upper arm, left inner elbow.
Okay, now stop you right there. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 78. And it's going to be behind you on that screen.
Okay.
Is this the bruise that you were referring to in your notes?
That's the one that was like on the left inner elbow.
And what was your findings as to that particular bruise?
Can you explain what
I think
you
you
mean by
said that
that?
it was in different stages of healing.
That's correct.
What does that mean?
So in different stages of healing, because some bruises were like purple or blue, there was some redness there, and then also there's almost a yellow color. So as bruises heal, they first are like pink or red, and then they sometimes can become like a a dark red or purple color, and then as they heal even more, they become like a yellow or green color.
And is that what you notated on the injury in State's Exhibit 78?
Yes.
Are there any other injuries that you noted?
There was an injury on her right third finger, or I'm sorry, a bruise on her right third finger, her right upper arm, the right side of her neck, behind the right ear, bottom of the right earlobe, her right cheek, the left side of her forehead, left side of her neck, right knee, left ankle, right ankle, and the right hip, as well as an abrasion to the her left upper back and the back of her head, and a red bumpy rash to the anal and vaginal area.
So overall, and I don't know if you list them out or counted them, overall, how many injuries did you find on Lily Place's body as far as bruises, scrapes, and scratches?
I'd have to count them. I don't. I counted at least 15 bruises, and two abrasions on her.
And showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 79. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what are we looking at there?
This is Millie's back. So you can see towards her hip, there's a bruise there that you can clearly see. It looks like you can see it on her left upper arm as well in that picture.
And then State's Exhibit number 8.
That's a
What was
bruise.
your notation in regards to this injury? First, what area of the body are we looking at?
This is her right hip, and there's a bruise that is scattered across her hip area.
After your examination of Millie, what do you do next?
Typically, like, I document it, and I would have let the provider seeing her know about my findings and let her know that I've documented in the notes, and then she's good to go ahead and see her as a patient.
Did you ask Millie any questions about how those injuries occurred?
I don't recall if she would have told me about how they occurred. I would have written them in my notes.
Do you have any notes in your records that indicate how these injuries occurred?
It appears that there's a notation that was done by the nurse practitioner who saw Millie that says that she's.
Asking, did you get any response from Millie as to how those injuries occurred?
I don't recall. Said I would have written it down if I had.
And did you write anything down?
I don't see anything there that I noted.
And Ms. Bales, are you familiar with like mosquito bites on children?
Yes.
And you say what's already been entered into State's Exhibit, evidence State's Exhibit number 68. Would that be, Ms. Behind, would that be consistent with mosquito bites?
I don't see anything there that looks like a mosquito bite.
And are you a mandated reporter?
Yes, I am.
If a child presented to you with those types of injuries, would you have to report? If a child presented with those types of bruises, would you be mandated to report?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. Any objections to this being excused?
No objections, Your Honor.
You're free to go. State will call us next witness.
The state will call Emmanuella Carr.
Emmanuella-Carr.
Emmanuella Carr.
Okay, Ms. Carr, right up here, please.
Morning, Judge.
right-hand man. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please sit down and you can raise your hand. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Emmanuella Arnaud-Carr, first name spelled E-M-M-A-N-U-E-L-L-A, last name A-R-N-A-U-D-C-A-R-R.
And Ms. Carr, how are you employed?
With the Department of Family and Children Services,
And how long have you been with the Department of Family and Children's Services?
about 7 years now.
And what position do you hold?
Currently, I am a consultant. I work with the state office, supervisor mentor.
And in 2015, what position did you hold?
I was the after-hours supervisor and special investigator.
And as a special investigator, what were your duties in 2015?
So I managed a unit, and then as a special investigator, I was going out on cases that were pertaining to serious injuries, child deaths, and or neglect or abuse from foster parents, daycares, things of that nature.
And what is, do you know the term substantiated?
Yes.
And what does that mean?
That means there was enough evidence to prove that it happened.
And unsubstantiated, what does that mean?
That means there wasn't enough evidence to prove that it likely happened the way they said it happened.
And as part of your job duties, are you to make a determination about whether a case is substantiated or unsubstantiated?
Yes.
In 2015?
Yes. Back then I was making the determination of whether cases were subbed or unsubbed.
And on November the 17th of 2015, did you become involved in a case involving Layla Daniel and Lily Place?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to November the 17th, were you involved in any way with Lily Place or Layla Daniel?
No, I wasn't involved prior.
And how did you become involved on November the 17th of 2015?
I received information, call stating that the foster child was in the hospital or was on her way to the hospital due to a choking incident while in the care of the Rosenbaums.
And upon receiving that call, what did you do?
I immediately informed my supervisor and additional supervisor, my supervisor and an additional supervisor, which was the county director at the time, Ebony, and Ms. Taylor, and I informed her that I would be the one going out in the case, and she confirmed yes, I would be.
And did you go out on the case?
I did.
And where did you go?
To Piedmont Henry Hospital.
And when you got to Piedmont Henry Hospital, what did you do?
I met with the case manager, Samantha White, and she explained to me that she received a call saying the child was choking at home on chicken.
After receiving that information, what are the next steps that you take?
I talked to her a little bit about the last time she saw the child. I asked a few questions as to what she needed to do next. She was really upset and not looking good, so I suggested that she go home. At that time, the ambulance had arrived to the hospital, and the child was pronounced deceased, and they had taken her into a room and wouldn't let anyone else in at that time.
And let me ask you, prior to your, I want to try to get this straight. Prior to your arrival, had the child, and I'll be speaking about Layla Daniel,
Yes.
had Layla Daniel arrived at the hospital?
Not at that exact time, no. She was on her way.
So you got there before she got there?
Yes.
And you indicated that you were informed that she was deceased.
Yes.
Did you inform anyone of the fact that she had passed away?
No.
After giving that information, you said that she was in the room. Did you at any point go to the room where Layla Daniel was being held?
Yes, I went to the room, but only after they allowed the coroner and several other people into the room at that time. I wasn't allowed prior to that.
When you were in the room with Layla Daniel, did you do anything while you were in the room?
When I got in the room, I did start taking some pictures. They were undressing her or taking off what she had left on, and they were looking at just kind of looking her over.
What did you observe anything while you were there taking photographs?
I observed marks and bruises just all over her front and back when they did move her. They were talking, the doctors and the other staff in the room were talking about the fact that she had used the bathroom, which is, something that happens. She used the bathroom on herself that day. And so I was just taking notes.
After you were doing that observation, what were your next steps as part of your investigation?
So I waited with the coroner to be able to go and speak to the family in the room. We had the other child that was in the hospital as well. The other child was taken to do an examination as well, so I followed them to that examination.
Okay. And when the other child, were you speaking about Millie Place?
Yes.
And did Millie did you ask her any questions or did she make any statements to you?
Along the way to the room, she had said that her sister was choking on chicken. She said she missed her and wanted her. When we got to the room, the medical examiner asked her a few questions about her own marks and bruises, and she would say she was riding her bike or she fell at gymnastics.
And when she stated that her sister was choking on chicken, did she tell you if she saw that or someone had told her that?
She didn't tell me. She was talking to the doctor in the room, and she just said that she heard that her sister was choking on chicken.
Did she tell you who she heard that from? Or did she say who she heard that?
She said her second mommy.
And did she tell you who her second mommy was?
Yes.
And who was that?
Miss Rosenbaum.
Prior to that, had you had any interaction with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
We've seen each other in court on several other defects cases, but not formally met.
When you say seen her in court with other defects cases, what was that occasion for that?
To my understanding, she was working, interning in the legal field, and so we would see each other in court, not on the same cases or anything, but she would be present during those hearings.
And during those hearings, what would you be testifying or just present? What would you be doing at those hearings?
So because I was after-hours supervisor, if we did any removals after hours, the next morning we would have a court hearing, and so again I would see her in the courtroom or in the court building. So.
And did y'all ever have a case together when y'all worked together during that course of time?
Not that I know of.
And were you present in the room with Millie doing her examination?
Yes.
And what were your observations during that examination?
She did have several marks and bruises. She had some rashing, some other little scratches that she attributed to sometimes riding a bike.
Did Millie at all tell you where she was when she indicated that her sister was choking?
No, initially she couldn't tell us anything. The only information she said was that she was upstairs, or they had just finished eating and she went upstairs.
Was she able to tell you what the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, was doing when she observed her doing anything while she was still in the home?
No.
And if I can show you, did she not tell you or you don't recall?
No, I don't recall.
Okay, looking at your report, would that help you?
Sure.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what she said to you, if anything?
Yes.
And what was that?
She stated that she observed Miss Rosenbaum. She had just fed them, and she had went upstairs, and they were told to get ready to go.
And did she observe Miss Rosenbaum do anything when she came downstairs?
Patting her on the back.
Did you remain in the room during Millie's examination?
I did.
After her examination, did you have any more, did you do anything else as part of your investigation?
Yes, based on the bruises and the child's report, I made a call to my direct supervisor, which is Ebony Taylor, and let her know the concerns thus far of the case. And she explained that the child would have to be removed or kept in defects custody at that time.
And after getting that information, what are the next steps that you take?
I went with the coroner to the room where the family was, where the Rosenbaums were.
Do you recall who was present at that time?
There was a lot of family members. That I can't remember everyone that was in the room, but I do recall Mr. Rosenbaum and Ms. Rosenbaum and her husband.
And did you speak with them and ask them any questions?
So the coroner led with the questions, and if I had any additional, I would ask after him. So yeah.
And what information did you receive from the Rosenbaums? Let me ask you, what were you asking the questions about?
Their kind of routine for that day, what happened.
And did you get that information?
Yes.
And what were you told as far as the routine for the day?
So Mr. Rosenbaum and Ms. Rosenbaum, Ms. Rosenbaum went to school in the evening, while Mr. Rosenbaum watched the children during the day, if memory serves me correct. And I was also told that at the time, Ms. Rosenbaum was the caretaker for the children because Mr. Rosenbaum went to work. They had been eating at the table. They were getting ready to go somewhere, or we're going to go somewhere after they ate. They had the chicken from the jail the day before was what the children were eating with some vegetables. She had asked the kids to go upstairs to get ready to go, while she, in turn, was getting their sneakers or their clothing. And
You said they had somewhere to go. Did she inform you where they were going?
I don't recall.
Would you put that in your report?
I might have put it in my report.
Looking at that, would that help? Professor?
Sure. Okay.
Do you recall now where they were headed to?
Yes.
And where were they going?
She had a board meeting that night with the Board of Commissioners.
Do you recall around what time she said these activities began?
I didn't get exact times that day, just a rundown of what they had going on.
I think you stopped. I stopped you. She was getting something while
Right.
on the Roosevelt stairs.
Right. She was getting their shoes and socks, it seemed. And she explained that she had her back turned, and the now deceased child was in her chair, a high chair it seemed, and was at the table and had been known to rock a bit. So when she heard the rocking, she just assumed that the child was rocking, because she normally does that in her high seat. And when she turned around, she observed the child to be white in color and observed the child to be choking.
And did she tell you what happened once she made those observations of Lily?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Did she tell you what she did when she saw the child being pale in color and shaking? Did she tell you?
Yes, she said she pulled open the high chair and she began to do what, like patting on the back and the Heimlich maneuver. She explained that she hadn't been really trained in it, but had been doing what she thought, she should be doing.
Did she tell you, besides patting her on the back, if she did anything else?
Yeah, she said after that, those attempts were unsuccessful. She had taken her out of the chair at one point. She had brought her over by the sink. She had lodged her finger down the child's throat to try to clear the airway. She had continued to pat her heavily on the back. She had taken a butter knife and putting it down the child's throat to clear the airway. At one point, she attempts to put her down. She says the child was like faintly breathing, so she puts her down or attempts to put her down on the floor, but dropped her a little bit. And then when she got down onto the floor, that's when she started to kind of hold her to start doing some more compressions and trying to get a hold of the police to do the CPR.
So let me ask you, when she said it was unsuccessful, did she ever tell you that she saw anything come out of Layla's mouth?
No.
And you said she was kind of holding her down. Did she describe to you how she was holding her down?
Yeah, it was almost like she was pinning her legs down, like on top of her, to start to do compressions again. That's how.
Did she tell you where she was doing compressions?
Yes, on her chest.
Did she tell you anything else about what measures she took to try to dislodge this item from Layla's throat?
No, that was the main thing. She did say she called the police and they were informing her what to do or instructing her by phone.
When you're having this conversation with defendant Jennifer Rosenbaum, what was her demeanor?
Initially, she seemed pretty calm. She kept talking about, saying that she couldn't cry. She was in shock. She kept saying, I don't know, my eyes are dry. I don't know why I can't cry. But she was shaking. She was in shock, during the conversation.
Do you recall what Mr. Rosenbaum's demeanor was?
He was crying. He was distraught.
At some point, did someone tell the family that Layla was deceased?
The coroner did.
Do you recall if Ms. Rosenbaum made any statements once the coroner announced that Layla was deceased?
I don't recall her making a statement.
Would you have put that in your report?
Yes.
Would it help by looking?
Yes. Okay.
Does that help you refresh your recollection? And what do you recall her saying?
So at the time, she explained that she hadn't been aware of the marks and bruises and things the child had, or she explained that they had come from the gymnastics. Even then, she wasn't really crying or anything. She just was explaining that, you know, how could this have happened, or she didn't understand what was going on.
During that time, had you told her anything about bruises on Layla?
No, she explained that the case manager had told her.
So prior to yourself and the coroner coming inside, to your knowledge, was she already aware about bruises on Layla?
Not to my knowledge, but after speaking to her during that session, she did explain that the case manager had questions about the bruising because she was questioned about it.
During that time, did you speak with Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Rosenbaum tell you about this incident?
He explained that day in particular, he was going to work, and normally they take shifts like I explained before. And he explained that the child was fine when he was there. She had been sleeping, I think, earlier that day. He explained, he was trying to explain to me at some point, I think Ms. Rosenbaum had kind of, you know, interjected a few times, but to his recollection, last time he saw her, she was awake, she was fine. She had actually went to sleep while he was there, and there was no concern prior to him leaving.
Was there a discussion in regards to where the children would go when they were, as far as daycare was concerned?
There was, but I don't remember the full conversation. Sorry. Yes, here you go.
And what was that conversation?
Yes, so I asked if they went, because I was trying to figure out if they had been anywhere else besides at the home of the Rosenbaums. And when daycare was brought up, I was told that they didn't qualify for daycare based on how much they made, but they had, you know, asked for services at one point.
Initially, Mr. Montes states 214 already entered into evidence. Do you know what that is?
Yes, it's an application for child care.
And who was that in regards to?
Ms. Rosenbaum.
Okay. And what happened with that application?
You're asking me to, what does it say?
What does it say?
Okay, it says that their application
You
was.
don't have to read that loud. Just
Okay,
read it.
it was denied.
Okay. And show you states exhibit 214 on the screen. What's that denial date? Or the letter indicating that they were denied services?
August 7th, 2015.
After speaking with Mr. Rosenbaum and the Rosenbaums, what do you do next as part of your investigation?
I explained that the other child would have to be removed per defects protocol because we didn't have clear evidence to identify the child, you know, to substantiate or unsubstantiate at that time, but also to clearly state that the child will be safe, the living child will be safe in their care. And so I explained that that child will be removed. I had asked for like whatever car seat or things they had at that time. And then of course I explained that I'll be following up with them to get additional information.
After that, did you have any more involvement with the defendants?
No.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Ross.
Good morning, Ms. Carter.
Good morning.
My name is Corinne Moore. I just got a number of questions for you.
Sure.
If you don't understand my question, please let me know. If you don't hear me, please let me know.
Okay.
You were not involved with the children prior to Layla dying, correct?
Correct.
And your role at the hospital was to talk to people.
My role with defects was to assess the situation once the case came in, yes.
So, as part of your role, did you talk to people?
I did.
Okay. And you spoke to nurses, correct?
I spoke to the hospital staff, the EMT, who was in the room, yeah.
And you spoke to Millie, didn't you?
The living child, yes.
Living child. And she was not shy, and she was very articulate, wasn't she, for her age?
She was shy at some points, depending on who was in the room.
Do you recall saying that she was not shy?
I don't recall.
She told you she was upstairs when Layla was choking, correct?
Correct.
And when she came downstairs, Mama was counting, right?
Yes.
Mama was counting. And what did you understand that to mean?
Possibly doing the Heimlich maneuver or doing compressions.
And you also talked to Millie about her bruises.
Mm-hmm.
And she accounted for the bruise that goes down her buttocks. She got that from playing outside, she said.
She did.
And she said that her left elbow was hurt when she fell off the bars and her elbow hit her knee, correct?
I don't recall.
She told you she got the other bruises from gymnastics, correct?
Correct.
And she was questioned again, and she said she didn't know how she got the bruises, correct?
She was questioned at the same time with the medical examiner, yeah.
And she didn't know how, that time she didn't know how she got the bruises.
Right, right.
One time she had an account, and then
Next she didn't, yeah.
then she didn't, correct? And you're aware of forensic interviewing in your business, right?
Correct.
You're aware that you're supposed to repeat, not supposed to repeat questions to children over and over, correct?
Can you ask that question again?
You are aware that people are not supposed to repeat questions to children over and over.
In a forensic interview, yes, but that wasn't a forensic interview.
I understand.
Okay.
But normally, you're not supposed to ask the questions, you're supposed to let the forensic interviewer do the interview, correct?
The medical examiner can ask questions, yes.
But when a forensic interview is involved, the forensic interviewer likes for the child not to have been questioned before the forensic interviewer gets to her, correct?
Correct.
You went over with Millie good touch and bad touch, right?
Correct.
And you asked her if she was touched inappropriately by the Rosenbaums, correct?
Correct.
And she said that Anthony,
I would object to this question, Judge.
That's
It's not
doors
relevant to this case.
doors been opened, Your Honor, and it's important to distinguish who's who.
It was, yeah, I'm not certain, she says the door has been opened, I don't know who's opened the door. I know Ms. Law asked questions about it going on.
But Ms. Johnson, the nurse,
It's not a jury step back. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 10:30. We're going to take our break, or at least you're going to have your break, and we'll see you soon. About 15 minutes.